Most people think time is like a river that flows swift and sure in one direction. But I have seen the face of time, and I can tell you, they are wrong.
Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is one of my favorite gaming experiences of all time. And speaking on the matter of time, in 2003 when the game first came out, I was only 13 years old. Gaming back then wasn't really as widespread as it is today with the fort crafts, the competitive scene of gaming and what have you. However, that doesn't mean it was any less important to the rest of us.
Whoa!
What I'm trying to say is that at the time, being a gamer meant we had to face a lot of backlash from society because gaming was perceived as a waste of time, or as my dear old dad used to put it, gamers are
a bunch of retards I wouldn't trust with a potato gun.
Honestly now, every time I wanted money for video games, I had to go to my mom first.
Mom, can I have some money?
And every time her answer was,
I don't know, Booby, ask your father.
And you all know what that means.
That's the end of that chapter.
And while I'm still on the matter of sidetracking, back then as a straight man, if you liked a girl and somehow you tell her you'd like video games, in her mind, you were exactly this guy.
Alright, so the compression and expansion of the longitudinal waves cause the erratic oscillation, you can see it there, of the neighboring particles.
But anyway, let's cue the new and improved intro and go about our business. From a storytelling point of view, the intro for the game is pure genius. It all fits perfectly into place with the motif of time, and once you finish the game, you cannot help being awestruck by how the story comes full circle right at the end. The game starts akin to a page torn right out of 1001 Nights. That's because the story is basically like 1001 Nights, which was its main inspiration. Now, from the very first scene, we are greeted by a narrator that is also our main character.
You may wonder who I am and why I say this. Sit down, and I will tell you a tale like none that you have ever heard.
Or so we think it's a narrator, but we'll come back to that at the end of the video, you'll see why. For now, I want to talk about the hallmark gameplay mechanic that made the Prince of Persia games so much fun to play. First off, we have the acrobatic nature of the traversal system. Now, you have to remember that this was way back in 2003 and people haven't experienced this type of character movement to such a degree before. I still remember the very first time I did the wall run and it completely blew my mind because of how much fun this game mechanic was to pull off. And from that moment onward, I was simply hooked. I mean, it's so good, and when you pair it to the great level design in 2020, it's still wow. The combat was another strong feature, and while replaying it, it kind of reminded me of a rudimentary version of the fighting from the Batman series. The ease with which you can switch between attacking enemies while parrying and counterattacking made for a damn good time back then, especially when the awesome music kicked in. Now, factor in the age of 13 when everything awesome makes you feel like a badass, and you start to get a sense of why Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is such a memorable game. And much like other third-person action-adventure games, its game design is based on pillars. Like the aforementioned combat that gets you your much-needed dose of fighting, the platforming section that's relaxing and this is how you don't get fatigued from all the fighting, the puzzle sequences that I can honestly do without at some points because they're just tedious as fuck, while taking a long-ass time to do.
That's it! You've got the first axle! Now, pick up the other three!
And the last pillar would be the cutscenes that totally mellow you out, through which the story is revealed to you piece by piece. Among these pillars, my favorite has to be the platforming, especially in the prison level, which I found to be the best section of the game that does that. It starts off with this awesome rock soundtrack that feeds into the presentation, all the while the camera shows you exactly what you need to perform in order to reach the checkpoint. This type of gameplay mechanic is a signature mark of Prince of Persia that fortunately is as awesome to experience now as it was back in 2003. This is why people like me still love the game 18 years later. And now for the sweetest part of any classic tale, the love story. It was obvious from the start that the prince would eventually grow close to his female counterpart, but it's the way in which their romance was paced that won me over. On one hand, in the beginning, we're introduced to the main character.
I am the son of Shahraman, a mighty king of Persia.
He displays signs of being morally upright, with bloodlust not being his purpose.
From the moment my sword tasted blood, I knew this would not be my way. I would win my father's praise not by killing, but by being the first to find the Maharaja's treasure vault and the wonders within.
On the other hand, we have Farah, that initially is nothing more than a captured slave in the siege that led to the obtaining of the Dagger of Time. But in a later cutscene, she reveals herself as being,
I am Farah, the daughter of the Maharaja from whom you stole it.
So in other words, we're treading on the path of the classical tale of the prince and the princess. The first time they properly meet, they are at odds with one another. Understandable given the circumstances. And after they sort of team up, the prince has a monologue that indicates the lack of any connection between the two.
But here I am, risking my life for her again. And why? Good question.
Later, however, when they fight a couple of more baddies together and start bonding, you might hear him say,
As we made our way through the moonlit ruins, I began to feel strangely drawn to the girl at my side.
What I like most about their dynamic in the beginning is the prince's inexperience with love. Clearly, he never felt anything mature like it before, otherwise you wouldn't hear him say things like,
I've been too indulgent. Probably because I felt sorry for her. Well, it stops now.
Another great aspect I loved about their evolution was the way in which their narrative was unfolding. He obviously acts like a stupid teenager when it comes to the matters of the heart, but Farah, on the other hand, is fully matured emotionally. At the same time, she's keeping her feelings towards the prince to herself. That is until she lets this one slip.
My love, please don't leave me.
What did you call me?
It doesn't matter.
And him, being a complete idiot, doesn't yet grasp the concept and in return says,
She said my love. It's quite natural, really. Her kingdom's conquered, she has nothing, no one to protect her. She needs me. I can see it in the way she looks at me.
I know, boys, right? And if you want to hear something even more moronic, listen to this.
I could marry her. Well, after all, she is a Maharaja's daughter. A conquered one, but still. Her blood is royal. Besides, what better way to tame her insolence? It's not so bad for a woman to have a little spirit. It's a challenge!
But soon enough, after some more time spent together, he starts getting drawn closer and closer to her, while at the same time distrusting her. And he kinda has a fair point to do so.
My father's army sacked your palace, captured you as a slave.
What?
You have every reason to hate me.
Now later, after the two get separated, there's one particular scene that marked me for life. In a good way, because it was the very first time I actually felt something while playing a video game.
Kabukian.
Farah, no!
It was so intense for me that I just wanted to put my hand through my 14-inch CRT monitor and catch Farah myself. This powerful scene alone, that of a woman sacrificing herself in front of her lover, hit me in the chest like a sledgehammer. The reason why I was so amazed wasn't because I could relate to it back then, or even now beyond the feat of imagination, but it's because of how the couple's evolution slowly unraveled while playing the game. You were there at the beginning and you were there at the end. This scene is also emphasized by the evolution through which the prince has gone through. We remember him at first wanting his father's approval, fighting for honor and glory, but by the end we see his full-blown evolution when he sheds his immaturity after losing Farah. Now let's rewind everything back for a bit and go back to the first time we hear our narrator/prince talk.
Time is an ocean in a storm. You may wonder who I am and why I say this. Sit down, and I will tell you a tale like none that you have ever heard.
Only thing is though, he wasn't a narrator at all and he wasn't speaking to us. Now take a look at this.
Time is an ocean in a storm. You may wonder who I am and why I say this. Sit down, and I will tell you a tale like none that you have ever heard.
See, I told you it was genius writing. The game starts out at the very end and you're witness to it, but you just don't know that information yet. It plays with all of our minds and tricks us right in front of our eyes. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you write a great and engaging story. Because its immersiveness hooked me right from the start, and few games tell a tale so well. That, and being the first game that made me experience such strong emotions when it came to its characters. Empathy is not such an easy feat to achieve, folks. Now, I for one would love a remake.
Come with me then. But I warn you, I move pretty fast. You'd better keep up!
A real remake, I mean. I'm thinking Blue Point Games. They did a hell of a job with the Uncharted trilogy, The Shadow of the Colossus, and Demon's Souls. But until then, when all of this is said and done, what the Sands of Time has done really well is set the scene for the awesome Prince of Persia, Warrior Within, The Two Thrones, and for what has become one of the most popular video game franchises of all time, Assassin's Creed. And if you're wondering why Ubisoft hasn't continued the franchise after the last games bombed, it's also because Assassin's Creed is selling extremely well and they're too similar, and because they don't really own the rights to the IP. The guy that invented Prince of Persia, Jordan Mechner, does, however. Maybe someday someone will pick up the franchise and re-release it. Who knows? Hopefully Naughty Dog or Sony Santa Monica. Well, that's it, folks. Short and sweet this time. Thanks for watching. Patrons, we love you and thank you for supporting us. Stay safe and see y'all next time.